Hello. My name is Kristina and I'm a PhD in adult education and researcher and teacher at University West. I will do two small contributions, one that aims to illustrate the Swedish higher education system in the former days and nowadays, and the other presentation is for my article Learning to Play the Seminar Game. So let's start with this higher education system. First of all, we have the Agency for Higher Education. They give directions to all the universities in Sweden on how and what should be taught at least today. But higher education in Sweden are in change. Maybe you have heard about the Bologna process. It's an European declaration that aims to increase mobility. It means that students all over across Europe should be able to go to each other's universities. The grading should be at least or probably the same, they want anyway. It also has to do a lot with the change from teaching to learning, to put the student in the center. And that is what I'm going to talk more about now. We are moving from a change from teaching, where we have a teacher-oriented classroom, to a more student-centered focus teaching. In the traditional way, maybe you have it in Russia, I don't know, Ukraine, it means that one expert are standing in front, like I'm doing now, a class, and give just all the knowledge I have to you. You should be grateful, you should be thankful, you should be quiet. And this I do to a group of students. Your job in this kind of context is to listen up, be a good student, and to shut up. Okay, maybe that is not quite the truth, but somehow, some way it is. We are moving from this traditional way of teaching to a more progressive way to teach in Sweden. That we're talking about student learning or teaching learning or learning facilities and so on. But the progress way is that you have to involve the student in the teaching. So we are moving from teaching for the students, and now the students should be teachers, or not teachers, but they should be involved in the teaching. So National Agency of Higher Education will be evaluate this kind of new project where we're talking about progressive student-centered teaching, and they will evaluate all the subjects in universities from this new perspective. It's actually not very new. You could go back to the Socratean dialogue that builds on the student's gap of knowledge, where the student or the people came to the square where he was sitting and asked, "Hello, Socrates, could you help me with this question?" And they're starting a dialogue. It's more or less the same way of thinking in the teaching. It should take those standpoints or enter or start in the students' questions, the students' learning situation. But how can we have an evaluation system that builds on the students' questions? Because the questions must be a lot, of course. So they will focus on what we can call the backward pedagogical idea. This is a bit strange concept, but it means that you as a teacher should be try to think backwards. Before you thought, when you designed the course, you were thinking about, okay, what do I know about this? What should you know about this? What should the students know about this? What would be happy to teach about this? But today you should be thinking, okay, what about the students' abilities, knowledge? What will they have? What will they bring with them from the course? And how will I examine that? So instead of starting in my interest as a teacher, my literature, I was starting the students' abilities and concepts and knowledge. We all know that since the late or early 70s, that the examination or the exams are directing the students' learning process. So this backward process is actually a way to answer the kind of knowledge we had since the 1960s or 70s in the pedagogics. So it's interesting that now it's starting to happen in something in Europe. You start with the student's ability. You thereafter think, okay, the student should know this and this and this, how to examine it, how should I examine it? And then the design of the studies will, of course, or this teaching process will be the one that is the most appropriate for the students to know how to do their exams. It could be a problem because it's not very easy to do this. And after that you have the last point of this backwards thinking is the literature. Remember, before we started with the literature. Now we have it at the last point, and this is quite a change for a lot of teachers. So what kind of theories or literatures will guide the students to pass their exams? That's the function of the literature. And finally, there's another important aspect when discussing students' influence or students' democracy in this kind of context, the Swedish context of higher education, and it is that we have an advisory board for each student program. It means that the students should be 1 or 2 students from each program who sit here, and they are representatives from the students group in this committee, and they actually have something to say about, to have a vote as well as all the other ones. So the students are from the very first day to the last day in the program a part of this committee, and this committee are working with questions just like student democracy, teaching designs, course plans, quality, educational evaluations, and so on. And the student is a part of this. This is quite an important factor to know. So given this context, or this rather shallow description of what the higher education in Sweden is aiming at or going to, the students in higher education, it could give you, the Swedish students in higher education, this description could give you some tools to understand the kind of reasoning and standpoints and analysis I made in my article, Learning to Play the Seminar Game. So, thanks for now. Bye.